Now available in paperback and Kindle, All About Marilyn. Learn all about the struggles of a faded former teen sitcom star in this absolutely fabulous 5-star screenplay. Get All About Marilyn in paperback and Kindle on Amazon.com today. I was watching the news and I was deeply saddened to see all of the destruction that took place as a result of the wildfires in Los Angeles. And I really feel for all the people who have lost their homes and the 24 people who have lost their lives as a result of these wildfires. And it really upsets me that to see so many people wind up basically losing everything that they wound up working for and may not even get a chance to even rebuild their lives because many insurance companies are not looking to go out here and cover many people because they wound up terminating their policies. Now, this whole situation with the California wildfires is quite troubling because, according to some people, they believe that this whole situation was completely preventable. And what happened in California really reminds me a lot of what happened in New Orleans with Hurricane Katrina. Now, when I take a critical look at what happened here in Los Angeles as related to the wildfires that wound up destroying entire parts of California, such as the neighborhood of the Pacific Palisades in Los Angeles, it basically is again reminding me a lot of the just complete incompetence that revolved around New Orleans when Hurricane Katrina took place. Now, if anybody remembers around that time of Hurricane Katrina, you had many blue politicians who were out here saying that they had the entire situation under control. Moreover, you had the red members of FEMA who basically were saying that they had everything under control. Unfortunately, what happened as Katrina took place is sadly the levees wound up breaking, flooding big parts of New Orleans, and the entire situation that was supposed to be a safe space in the Superdome turned into complete chaos all throughout the hurricane, and the entire city just fell into complete chaos. And the same thing is happening here in Los Angeles with these wildfires that have basically destroyed entire neighborhoods, including a historic black part of Los Angeles. And I'm looking at this whole situation and seeing the same type of incompetence that took place in New Orleans and the state of Louisiana as related to the entire political situation that was completely mismanaged regarding the entire city of Los Angeles and the overall environment. Now, when I look at this whole situation, the reason why these wildfires got so completely out of control is because many of the politicians like Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass were more interested in virtue signaling in an effort to spite Donald Trump rather than going out here and focusing on trying to prevent all of the situations that could have led to a disastrous wildfire taking place. Now, when it comes to Gavin Newsom, he's supposed to be running the state, but it's looking to me like the state has been running him. And instead of him taking a leadership role, what he did was go out here looking to cater to these social justice activists who say that they're all about preserving the environment, but don't know anything about things regarding the environment based on the just imbecilic statements they have made as related to the environment. Now, when it comes to very dry areas, what many people used to do was go out here and pick up many of the dead branches and go out here and cut down many of the dead trees. And they would also go out here and do things like go out here and do controlled burns of things like dry brush. And they would do this in an effort to be preventative maintenance in order to go out and prevent a massive wildfire that could take and destroy swaths of entire parts of an area like California. Unfortunately, what happened is that Gavin Newsom went out here and listened to these so-called woke environmentalists activists who went out here and said you don't need to do these preventative measures, and that basically led to California becoming a lot drier and created a situation where there was a lot of dead wood that would basically create kindling for a fire. This, combined with the weather and the Santa Ana winds, basically created a powder keg that was about to explode. And many in government didn't pay this attention because they basically wanted to go out here and listen to these activists and listen to their ideas about environmentalism that showed us they knew nothing about the environment at all. Moreover, what exacerbated this situation was Gavin Newsom looking to go out here and protect a fish known as the Delta smelt. And this Delta smelt was supposedly a fish that we've been trying to reintroduce in the wild because it had been allegedly been extinct for at least 6 years, and they had been trying to reintroduce this fish. But the whole thing is they wanted to not have the water in the area because there was supposed to be water in the area that was supposed to be diverted down to Los Angeles, but because they wanted to protect the Delta smelt, they wanted to, again, keep this water from coming to Los Angeles and keep this water from coming to Los Angeles, which could have moisturized many of these dry areas and also could have been a tool they could have used to go out here and possibly fight many of the wildfires all around. But sadly, Gavin Newsom was more caught up in looking to, again, virtue signal about all how he cared about the environment for the fish, but not care about the people. And this basically, again, exacerbated the situation as related to the powder keg that was happening, as related to Los Angeles, as related to it being extremely dry. And this whole need to, again, try to save this fish basically made the environment a lot worse for many of the residents of Los Angeles who didn't see the clear and present danger they were in under the misleadership of Gavin Newsom, a misleadership that was further exacerbated by the new mayor, Karen Bass, who shows that she had no idea how to lead as related to navigating a direction for the city. And this was further compounded by the whole COVID pandemic, where Gavin Newsom terminated many Los Angeles firefighters because they would not take the jab for the vaccine. And this led to a lot of qualified firefighters being kicked off the force. And as a result, we didn't have a lot of firefighters to go fight the fire. And this was further compounded because instead of looking to find a qualified fire chief, LA basically said they had their first woman fire chief and was looking to hire so-called diverse firefighters in women and minorities. But sadly, they didn't have enough qualified firefighters to wind up fighting this fight. And as things snowballed with this whole situation as related to these wildfires, we basically got a situation on the level of Hurricane Katrina, in it being a complete disaster created by the incompetence of many of California's politicians and further exacerbated by the complete misleadership at the top. And this complete misleadership basically is a situation that, again, is on a level of incompetence that I haven't seen since the days of Ray Nagin, who ran New Orleans into the ground, and the governor at the time, who basically was completely out of touch with the people. And that's what's really sad here about California, is that you've got a bunch of politicians who were just, again, completely out of touch with reality, to understand the danger that they put their constituents in, because they were basically governing on feelings. And as they were governing on feelings, they couldn't see the basic facts about life as related to living in California. No, they couldn't see the basic facts about life in California because, again, for over 100 plus years, people were going out here maintaining those parts of California by doing things like cutting down dead trees, picking up dead wood out of forests and places around, and they were doing controlled burns of dry brush. This is what President Trump was trying to tell Gavin Newsom to do, but Gavin Newsom didn't want to listen to him. And since he didn't want to listen to him, this is basically all the chaos created by Gavin Newsom, not knowing how to, again, lead the state of California. And sadly, because of his incompetence, the entire state is burning. And what's really sad is that he's out here looking to blame Donald Trump, trying to blame Donald Trump for policies that he implemented, listening to these so-called woke environmentalist activists, these activists who show us they know nothing about the environment, because all of the things that they said that to preserve the environment ironically wound up destroying the environment and destroying the homes of thousands of people who now basically are homeless. And now that they're homeless, there may not be a way for them to be able to rebuild their homes. May not be a way for them to rebuild their homes because many insurance companies canceled the policies of thousands of people. And as they canceled the policies of thousands of people, those people don't have the money to rebuild. And what could sadly happen to Los Angeles is Los Angeles could wind up looking like the South Bronx in the 1970s and up to the 1990s, where all we saw were a lot of burnt out buildings and a lot of abandoned lots. That's what we saw back in the 70s up to the 90s when I was living here in the South Bronx. I mean, I remember, again, walking by abandoned buildings in order to go to school. I remember walking by burnt out buildings and abandoned lots, and that could be the fate that happens to Los Angeles, where there was a lot of prime real estate, and it could be that fate for minimum as related to things, because if people don't have the money to rebuild, the entire state of California could be in a very much worse place than it is right now, where the city basically is in a lot of debt, the state is in a lot of debt, and it may not have the money to be able to rebuild the state because Gavin Newsom basically ran the state into a fiscal crisis, and ran it into a fiscal crisis because of his incompetence. And what's really sad about this situation is that it was overall preventable. Many Californians had an opportunity to basically deal with this whole situation with Gavin Newsom's incompetence during the pandemic. However, instead of recalling Gavin Newsom like they should have done, they decided to not only not recall him, but they also went out here and re-elected this idiot. They re-elected this idiot, and sadly, what happened when they re-elected this idiot is he basically wound up creating a situation that led to the destruction of major neighborhoods in one of the biggest cities in the United States. And this calamity in and of itself basically is one that was building over time. This was building over time because many of those on the left, again, were so arrogant to believe that they could just go out here and push their far left policies that they believed the ideals of them were more important than people. And because they believed their policies were more important than people, they couldn't hear the warning signs from someone like President Trump. Now, I don't like Donald Trump, but I will agree with him as related to managing the environment. Again, that water should have been diverted down to Los Angeles so that you could moisturize the air and moisturize things so that you could have a lower humidity level and also be able to have water to put out fires. And you needed to go out here and do those controlled burns and gather up those dry branches and dead trees. And you really needed to find an environmentalist who could again present you the facts, because it's clear to me that the far left guys with the environmental things that from the woke mindset, as it's called, didn't know what they were doing, didn't know anything about science, didn't know anything about geography. These people basically, again, looking to run on feelings. And again, those feelings basically just did not change the facts as related to things. And sadly, these people couldn't see the consequences of their actions because they were caught up in their ideals instead of seeing the real. And again, this is why you don't want to have beta males in leadership positions, because when you put a beta male in a leadership position like Gavin Newsom, again, all they see are ideals. They don't see real. And again, a man has to see real. This is what was reinforced to me by an ebook that a viewer sent me that I did a review of. Again, a man has to live in reality, and sadly, when it came to Gavin Newsom, he couldn't see reality. And even worse, Karen Bass, the mayor of Los Angeles, was so caught up in her ideals, she was in Ghana as the city was burning, which shows me how completely out of touch she is as related to running one of the biggest cities in the United States. And the entire city of Los Angeles sadly wound up burning because a lot of these people on the left were burning up in anger about Donald Trump, and their obsession with Donald Trump basically led to, again, entire neighborhoods in Los Angeles being destroyed, led to entire neighborhoods of people losing their homes. And what's even sadder is many of the people there got caught up in these ideals and could not see the real and clear and present danger that was being presented to them with the Palisades fire, the Eaton fire, and the Hearst fire. Sadly, they couldn't see what was going on because they were so polarized and caught up in their feelings, they couldn't see the facts related to things. And the sad thing is just as bad as Hurricane Katrina, where again we had similar polarization of members of the Blue Party who, again, could not see things, and even worse as related to the response from the Bush administration, where we found out FEMA was not being run by a qualified person as related to being able to manage natural disasters. What we got was a guy who was a horse trainer in Michael Brown running FEMA because he was one of Bush's cronies. And this is what created one of the worst disasters as related to a hurricane. And even worse now, with Los Angeles, we got a disaster on the level of Katrina. And sadly, many Americans really have not learned that you need to be able to have competent people in positions of power. You really need to have a competent person, again, being able to manage your environment. You really need competent people to be in your governor's office. You really need competent people in your mayor's office. And that's where I see a problem with the American people who vote on feelings and not facts, do not vote on agenda and things. No, what they do is vote on feelings as related to their feelings about Donald Trump. And that's the scary part about America over the last, I'd say, decade or so. We've got people caught up in their feelings about Barack Obama. We've got people caught up in their feelings about George W. Bush. We've got people caught up in their feelings and not thinking about who you're hiring as related to being qualified. This is in every aspect of American culture. And sadly, what's happened is we've got this great tragedy, and instead of people looking at this tragedy and seeing the real problem being that we are not going out here and finding qualified people to do their jobs. I mean, I look at Gavin Newsom, and this man says he wants to run for president, but it's clear he can't even run his own state. This man is completely incompetent, and sadly people knew he was incompetent, but didn't do anything as related to this baby boomer who basically busted up the second biggest city in the United States. I mean, basically destroyed an entire city because of his incompetence and his backwards policies, looking to, again, virtue signal and listen to people as related to their dysfunctional analysis of the environment that goes against centuries of approaches that have been proven successful. I mean, for over 100 years, people had been cutting down dead trees. People had been, again, picking up all of that dead wood. people had been doing controlled burns in an effort to prevent a serious wildfire, but a handful of idiots from a college with a little bit of a degree want to tell us that to do things different. And instead of going with the facts and the science that show us all things, again, ironically, compared to the whole pandemic situation where they told us to trust the science, they didn't trust the science as related to the environment. And now many people don't have an environment of a neighborhood to live in. They don't have a community to go back to. And it may possibly be 3 years before anything gets rebuilt, if it does get rebuilt. Now, some people will say, oh, BlackRock may buy all this property, but again, that property in and of itself, you can't buy everything because eventually you got to rebuild all this stuff, and eventually you're stuck with all this stuff. And again, this is a devastating thing to happen to an economy, but it happened because of, again, really bad policies from those on the left who show us that they have no competence whatsoever. I mean, this is shown by Gavin Newsom in and of himself. Again, not even knowing anything about fire hydrants and even a reservoir being taken offline. Again, complete incompetence all around. Complete incompetence all around. And what's really sad is that Gavin Newsom is getting a pass because of his white privilege, the pass that Ray Nagin did not get. And the whole thing is he's getting this pass. And the whole thing is this man needs to be held accountable. Same thing with Karen Bass and many members of the city council. Many of these people need to be held accountable for the mess that they have made with California. They have basically made a mess on the level of Hurricane Katrina. And I keep repeating about Hurricane Katrina because I want you to see this in the context of history. I want you to see this in the context of history because Hurricane Katrina basically destroyed New Orleans and the city is still trying to recover. I mean, we wound up again with those levees breaking because people, again, they took life for granted. And this is a problem I'm seeing with a lot of beta male and baby boomers and feminists. They take life for granted in this country. They don't go out here and look to preserve the institutions that they have. They don't look to, again, look at the traditions of their parents. They take life for granted, and that puts people's lives in danger. That's what happens when you go out here and have people who have it too good. They don't appreciate what they have. They don't take care of what they have. They don't understand the role of being stewards. They don't understand the role of going out here and taking care of business. No, when it comes to people like Gavin Newsom, a baby boomer, Karen Bass, who I think is another baby boomer, again, takes life for granted as related to America, and again, more caught up in ideals than dealing with real, and again, this is leading to real tragedy going on in real time. And the whole situation, again, sadly could have been prevented. Had we had competent leadership. And that's where we, the people, have to really start really thinking about who we vote for. We have to really think about who we vote for because voting has consequences. And we're seeing that in California where people got caught up in their feelings about abortion to the point where they weren't thinking about their own safety and their own life. That's what's really scary here. People got caught up in polarized rhetoric about abortion to the point where they weren't thinking about their lives. And sadly, they didn't see that voting has consequences and policy has consequences. That's what's sadly happening here. And sadly, what's happening here is proving a point that was made regarding the term get woke, go broke. And sadly, with the environmental policy that was so-called woke, California basically is a broken city. That's sadly the whole situation going on as I related to think about these wildfires. Again, this shows us what happens when you have people who, again, go out here and, again, are thinking that they are going to, again, spite someone and, again, think and running things on feelings. But the whole thing is that they wound up not running things and as related to facts. And sadly, that's what's happened now. And California's biggest city is now basically a place that's been basically run straight into the ground. Now available in paperback and e-readers, All About Nikki, a fabulous first season. The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air meets Clueless in this absolutely fabulous African-American 1990s teen sitcom. Get all 13 episodes of All About Nikki, the fabulous first season, in paperback and e-readers today. Support Black-owned and Black-operated digital broadcast media. www.niceradionetwork.com. Nice Radio Network, broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.